Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My ex cheated with a man her mom set her up with and got pregnant. Now she's begging me to be the dad. But my final words left her family in shock. Back in 2015, I met Cameron in college. She was smart, funny, and we clicked immediately. Everything just felt natural with her, like we were meant to be. By 2019, we were pretty serious. I truly thought I had found the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So I did what any man in love would do. I worked my butt off. My job at the factory wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. I picked up extra shifts, took overtime whenever I could, and saved every penny I could manage. All because I wanted to buy her a ring. Not just any ring, the ring. Something that would show her how much she meant to me. The plan was to propose on Christmas at her parents' house. I thought it'd be perfect surrounded by family, the house glowing with lights, that cozy, festive warmth in the air. The kind of moment you remember for the rest of your life. Cameron's family. Well, they were interesting. Her dad, Mason, was chill, quiet, respectful, just a decent guy all around. Her sister Sabrina was super sweet, always had something kind to say, always supportive. But Jessica, her mom? Yeah, Jessica hated me. I never really understood why. No matter how hard I tried, it was never good enough for her. I'd show up with flowers, she'd roll her eyes. Offer to help clean up after dinner, and she'd say, "That's the least you could do." She'd make snide comments when Cameron wasn't looking like how she deserved someone with more ambition or better prospects. Cameron would just brush it off with, "That's just how my mom is." But I didn't buy it. I knew when someone didn't like me, and Jessica, she made no effort to hide it. Still, I kept trying. I loved Cameron. I figured if I kept showing I was serious, Jessica would eventually come around. So for Christmas, I went all out. I got Sabrina a new laptop. She'd been talking for months about how she needed one for college. For Mason, I picked up this fancy barbecue grill he'd been eyeing. And for Jessica, I stretched my budget to the limit and bought her this expensive scarf from a boutique Cameron mentioned once. I hated spending that much on someone who barely tolerated me, but part of me hoped maybe, just maybe, it'd soften her a little. Cameron was working a hospital shift and said she'd meet us at her parents' house later. So I got there early and handed out the gifts. Sabrina's face lit up when she opened the laptop. She cried, actually cried, and hugged me tight. "It's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me," she whispered. Mason smiled and looked genuinely happy with the grill. Even Jessica managed to force a thank you when she opened the scarf. For a moment, just a moment, I thought maybe things were finally turning around. Then I noticed Sabrina acting strange. Real twitchy. Her eyes kept flicking between me and Mason, like she was working something out in her head. Then she looked down at the floor, took a deep breath, and said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" Yeah, sure," I said, confused. She led me to her room. Mason followed behind, looking just as puzzled as I felt. Sabrina sat on the edge of her bed, hands shaking. Her eyes were already welling up. She looked at me, then at her dad, then back at me. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice low. "I didn't want to ruin this, but I can't keep it in anymore." I had no idea what Sabrina was talking about until she reached into her nightstand and handed me something. A pregnancy test. I just stared at it, completely frozen. My mind blanked out like someone had pulled the plug, and everything just stopped working. I couldn't think, couldn't move. My brain felt like it short-circuited. "It's Cameron," Sabrina said quietly, her voice trembling. "I found it last month." And then she dropped the bomb. "She's been cheating on you," she said. "Since early this year." My lips parted, but no words came. I just stood there, numb, gripping the pregnancy test like it was some kind of weapon. Sabrina kept going, tears in her eyes. "It's with a guy Jessica introduced her to. Mom's been pushing her to date him behind your back for months. Cameron begged me not to tell you. She said she was figuring things out." I didn't know what to do, but I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. "You didn't deserve this." I couldn't even respond. My chest felt tight, my hands shook, and my vision blurred like someone had hit me with a bat. My mouth was dry. My heart was thudding in my ears. Mason, who had been silent this whole time, stepped closer and gently put a hand on my shoulder. "Justin, I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I understand if you need to leave." That snapped me out of the haze. I gave a slight nod, forcing myself to speak. "Thanks, Sabrina, for telling me. I appreciate it." She nodded back, lips quivering, barely able to look at me. I turned to Mason and shook his hand. He gave me a look I couldn't quite read, maybe sympathy, maybe guilt, but didn't say anything more. Then I walked out of the room. As I passed through the hallway, I glanced into the living room. There was Jessica sitting on the couch, legs crossed, swirling a glass of wine like it was just another holiday evening. No remorse. No emotion. Just this smug, calm look on her face like she'd won. I didn't say a word to her. I didn't trust myself to. I knew if I opened my mouth, I might say something I wouldn't be able to take back, or worse, do something I'd regret. The drive home was a blur. I don't even remember how I got back to my apartment. My body was on autopilot, but my mind was spiraling rage, heartbreak, disbelief all crashing into each other like a storm I couldn't escape. As soon as I walked in, I called my family. I needed anyone to remind me I wasn't losing my mind. I told them everything. My mom was furious. "You're better off without her," she snapped. My sisters? Oh, they were ready to fight. Literally. "Say the word," one of them said. "We'll go over there right now." But I told them to let it go. I don't want revenge. I just want to move on. That night, around 11 p.m., my phone started blowing up. "Cameron." Text after text. "Please. I need to explain. I can explain everything. Just give me 5 minutes, please." I didn't reply. I stared at the screen until the battery died. She called 2 over and over. I ignored every single one. The next morning, I changed my number, deleted my social media, started erasing every trace of her from my life. Photos, texts, old gifts gone. It hurt like hell, but I knew one thing for sure. I deserved better. After Christmas, it felt like I'd shifted into survival mode. Cutting Cameron off wasn't just about avoiding her calls or texts. It was about protecting myself from her, from the lies, from the version of my life I thought was real but never existed. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated. I was angry. And I was stuck, replaying every conversation, every hug, every "I love you," trying to figure out how I missed the signs. She didn't stop. She called from blocked numbers. She sent emails. She even tried contacting my family. Every message was the same. "It's not what it looks like. It's a huge misunderstanding." Everything. But what was there to misunderstand? She cheated, got pregnant, lied about it. End of story. In those first few weeks after everything blew up, I spent a lot of time with my family. Honestly, I don't know how I would have gotten through it without them. My mom, being the nurturing force she's always been, made it her mission to make sure I was eating, sleeping, functioning. She'd check in constantly, dropping off food, bringing over tea, sometimes just sitting with me while I stared into space. "You don't have to talk," she'd say gently. "Just rest. I'm here." My sisters, on the other hand, were much more direct. "Dude," one of them said, "she's trash. Don't waste another second thinking about her. She cheated and lied." "You didn't do anything wrong," another added. "She's the one who screwed everything up." They were blunt, but I needed blunt. I needed to hear that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the problem, that everything I was feeling was valid. To keep my mind from spiraling, I dove into work. I picked up extra shifts at the factory, anything to stay busy. The silence of being alone at home was unbearable, so I filled every hour I could. Part of it was distraction, sure, but part of it was also necessity. I drained a lot of my savings buying that ring. That money was gone, and so was the future I thought I was building with Cameron. It hurt, more than I could explain, but I wasn't going to let it break me. I started refocusing on myself, on who I was before everything revolved around her. I joined a local basketball league with some guys from work. Nothing serious, just pickup games, but it helped. It reminded me that I was still allowed to have fun. I reconnected with old friends I'd drifted away from during my relationship. We went out for beers, talked about stupid stuff, laughed. It felt good to just be again. And for some reason, I even tried learning to cook. Spoiler alert, I'm still terrible at it. Burned my fair share of dinners. But there was something kind of calming about it, even when I messed it up. Slowly, I felt myself starting to heal. Then, around mid-2020, I got a text that caught me completely off guard. It was from a mutual friend I hadn't heard from in a while. All it said was, "Hey, did you hear about Cameron?" I stared at the message for a while, debating whether to even respond. I'd done a good job cutting her out of my life. I didn't need to open old wounds. But curiosity, yeah, it got the better of me. I replied, "No? What happened?" The friend told me Cameron's affair partner, the one Jessica set her up with, had ghosted her. Completely disappeared after finding out he was the father of her baby. Wanted nothing to do with her or the kid. Now, Cameron was a single mom, trying to figure things out alone. My reaction? Honestly, not much. Maybe a flicker of satisfaction, like that's what you get. But mostly, I just felt indifferent. Her drama, her choices, they weren't my burden anymore. I felt relieved. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just free. A couple months later, she somehow got a hold of my new number. No idea how. I didn't even recognize the number when it rang. But something made me answer. "Hello," I said cautiously. "Justin, it's me. Please don't hang up," she blurted out. I didn't say anything. I wanted to talk. She went on, her voice shaky. "I know I messed up. I made a mistake. I was confused and scared, and..." I let her ramble for a bit. I could hear the desperation in her voice, the regret, maybe even guilt. But it didn't matter anymore. After a minute or two, I finally cut her off. Cameron, I said, my voice low, steady. I don't care anymore. Whatever you have to say, it won't change anything. We're done. That's when she switched tactics. Her tone flipped on a dime. No more apologies. No more fake tears. Now it was guilt. You owe me this, Cameron snapped over the phone. After everything we went through, you're just going to ignore me? That's not fair. I gripped the phone tighter, jaw clenched. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She really thought I owed her anything? I kept my voice calm. Cold. I don't owe you a damn thing, I said. You made your choices. Now live with them. Before she could say another word, I hung up. It felt good. Not long after that, Jessica decided to get involved. She sent me a string of texts, paragraphs long, laced with her usual venom. Accusations. Manipulation. Insults. You're a coward. You're running away from your responsibilities. I stared at the screen, stunned. Responsibilities? Was she serious? I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one who got pregnant with someone else's kid. I wasn't the one lying and covering it up while pretending to be in love. The sheer audacity was unreal. I didn't reply. I blocked her number, too. For a while, it felt like they were everywhere trying to claw their way back into my life. Reaching out through friends, mutual contacts, even burner numbers. But every time they did, it just reminded me I was doing the right thing. Every call, every message, every plea just cemented my decision. I didn't want their explanations. I didn't want closure. I just wanted distance. And eventually, it happened. The calls stopped. The texts stopped. My days got quieter, lighter. I could breathe again. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life. Like I wasn't drowning anymore. Mother's Day rolled around, and I was really looking forward to it. I planned to spend the day with my mom and one of my sisters, Rachel. After everything, I wanted to make it special. My mom had always been the glue, the one holding everything together, no matter what fell apart. We decided on Red Lobster, her favorite. She loved seafood, and it felt like the perfect treat for her. It was supposed to be a calm, drama-free day. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. We were finishing up our meal, getting ready to leave, when I saw them. Jessica and Sabrina. Of all the restaurants, of all the days they had to show up there. My stomach dropped like a stone. Sabrina's eyes widened. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the carpet. Her face turned pale, and she ducked her head immediately. But Jessica? Jessica locked eyes with me. And in a flash, that same old look of disdain washed over her face. The one I'd seen too many times, like I was something she scraped off the bottom of her shoe. Beside me, I felt Rachel tense up. I didn't even need to look at her. I could feel the shift in her body. She was protective by nature, and especially when it came to me. I could already tell she was ready to go off. Then Jessica's expression changed. Her eyes shifted from me to Rachel. Her brows pulled together slightly, lips parting in confusion. And for the first time, she didn't look smug. She looked thrown, confused, like she was piecing something together. It hit me then, hard and absurd all at once. Jessica was staring at Rachel like she'd just uncovered a secret. And that's when I realized she must have finally figured it out. Rachel was my sister. The same other woman Jessica had once accused me of cheating with. The audacity of it all nearly made me laugh out loud. After everything, after her daughter's lies, betrayal, and that whole mess, Jessica had the nerve to think I was the cheater. That my own sister was some kind of mistress. Rachel leaned in close, muttering under her breath, "You want me to handle her?" I shook my head. The last thing I wanted was a scene in the middle of a restaurant. Nah, not worth it. My mom, who'd been silent but watching with hawk eyes, gave Jessica a look that could have frozen hell. She reached over and gently nudged me. "Let's just go," she said quietly. But then, just as we started to turn away, Sabrina stepped forward. "Please, can we talk? Just for a minute," she asked, her voice shaky. "Alone." Before I could even process, Rachel fired back without hesitation. "Oh, really? Why would he want to talk to you?" Her words sliced through the air. Sabrina flinched, but didn't back down. She looked genuinely upset, her eyes glossy, her shoulders tense. Then my mom stepped in again, softly but firmly. "Maybe it's worth hearing what she has to say, without her mother around." I hesitated. Not because I thought I'd hear something that would change anything, but because I was curious. There were still questions buried under all the hurt. I nodded. "All right, just a minute." Sabrina led me off to a quiet corner, far enough that Jessica's bitter energy couldn't reach us. The second we were out of earshot, she turned to me and said, "I'm sorry. For everything. For how it all went down." I looked at her. I could see the regret in her face, clear and raw. But I kept my mouth shut and let her talk. "I miss having you around," she said, her voice tight. "You were like a brother to me. I didn't want things to go this way." I didn't know what to say to that. I just gave her a small nod and stayed quiet. She took a breath. "Cameron's been miserable since you left. Crying all the time. saying she regrets everything. Says she wishes she could take it all back. I kept my tone even. I'm sorry she's struggling, I said. But that's not my problem anymore. She made her choices. Sabrina nodded slowly, biting her lip like she didn't want to say what came next. Then she did, and it hit me in the gut. She destroyed the laptop you gave me, she said quietly. Right after you left. She was mad at me for telling you the truth. That stung. I'd gotten that laptop for her out of genuine care. I'd saved up for it. It was never about impressing anyone, just doing something kind. And Cameron had ruined it out of sheer spite. I exhaled hard, biting down on the anger bubbling up. Before I walked away, there was one thing that had been gnawing at me, bothering me since Christmas. I looked at Sabrina, genuinely confused. Why does your mom hate me so much? What did I ever do to her? She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, then finally said it. She thought you were cheating. I blinked. What? She saw you with another woman, she said quietly. Rachel. She didn't know you were siblings. My jaw dropped. I stood there, stunned, letting her words settle in. All of this, everything, the betrayal, the cheating, the pregnancy, the heartbreak, it had started because Jessica made an assumption. Because she jumped to a ridiculous conclusion and convinced Cameron I was unfaithful. No proof. No conversation. Just spite and suspicion. I let out a hollow laugh. It wasn't funny, not really, but it was so stupid, so unnecessary, that I couldn't help it. Wow, I muttered, shaking my head. It ruined everything. Over a misunderstanding. Thanks for telling me, I said. I looked at her for a moment and added, hey, the laptop's warranty is still good. You can probably get it fixed. Her face lit up. For a second, I saw the same kind, shy girl I used to joke around with, the one who always had my back. We shared a quick, sincere hug, no drama, no baggage, and I turned to leave, heading back to my mom and Rachel. When I told them what Sabrina had said, Rachel immediately rolled her eyes. So Jessica's not just a jerk, she's also an idiot. Good to know. My mom let out a sigh and put a hand on my arm. Justin, she said, using my full name like only she could, you're better off without those people in your life. She was right. I'd spent so much time twisting myself into knots trying to make things work with Cameron and her family. Trying to win over Jessica, trying to prove I was good enough. But now it was clearer than ever they were never worth the effort. Not really. A few days after the whole Red Lobster incident, I got a call from Sabrina. She wanted help with the laptop warranty I'd mentioned. And honestly, she'd been one of the few decent people in that family. So I said sure. We agreed to meet at a local electronics store. When I got there, Mason was with her. That surprised me, but in a good way. Mason had always been solid. Out of all the chaos that night on Christmas, he was the only one who looked me in the eye and offered a genuine apology. While the store clerk worked on the laptop situation, Mason and I talked. He thanked me again for the grill I gave him and mentioned how much he enjoyed using it. His tone was warm, like he really meant it. Sabrina was quieter, but I could tell she was relieved. Relieved to be getting help. Relieved, maybe, just to have someone treat her like a human being again. The whole moment felt almost normal. After we wrapped things up, Mason looked over and said, "Hey, want to grab some lunch? My treat. Just as a thank you." I thought about it and smiled. Yeah, I said. Sure. Figured it'd be a good way to catch up. We went to a small restaurant nearby. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place where you could hear yourself think. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about Cameron or the mess she left behind. Mason talked about his plans to redo their backyard, something about adding a fire pit and a deck, and Sabrina gave some updates about school, though it was clear she was still navigating a lot of tension at home. It was peaceful, surprisingly normal. I was even enjoying myself. Then, just as we were finishing up, I heard someone call my name. Justin. I looked up, and there she was. Cameron. My heart sank. She looked rough, tired, stressed, worn down. It was like she'd aged years since the last time I saw her. For a moment, a small part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly, I was annoyed. Annoyed that she was here, that she had found me, that she was ruining the one calm afternoon I'd managed to carve out for myself. Hi, she said, barely audible. Her eyes darted to Mason and Sabrina, then settled back on me. Can we talk? I didn't get up. I stayed right where I was and crossed my arms. My voice came out cold. What do you want, Cameron? She stood there awkwardly, fidgeting. Then she stepped a little closer. I want to explain. Please. I've been trying to talk to you for months. I let out a long sigh. You've got 5 minutes. Go. She took a shaky breath and started speaking. It was the same song I'd heard in texts and voicemails: apologies, regret, confusion. She said she didn't know what she was thinking, that she'd made a mistake, that she wished she could undo it. Then she dropped what she clearly thought was a revelation. My mom, she convinced me you were cheating. She said she saw you with another woman. I sat up straighter, jaw clenched. You mean my sister? I said sharply. That's who Jessica saw. Rachel is my sister, Cameron. If you'd bothered to ask if you'd just talk to me instead of jumping to conclusions, we wouldn't even be here right now. Cameron's face crumpled. Oh, I didn't know. I thought. She trailed off, her eyes searching the table for some kind of anchor. I should have talked to you, she mumbled. I nodded, but there was no softness in it. You just cheated, I said flatly. For almost a year. Instead of trusting me, you lied. Slept with someone else. Got pregnant. And now you expect me to care about your excuses? Her voice cracked. I wasn't happy. I didn't know what to do. You could have talked to me. I snapped, my patience gone. You could have ended things if you weren't happy. But instead you went behind my back. That's on you. Mason and Sabrina sat there awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation unraveling in front of them. Cameron had started crying, the kind of sobs that might have worked on me years ago back when I was still blinded by hope, by love, by the idea that things could be fixed. But not anymore. That switch in me had flipped, and there was no turning it back on. Please, she begged, her voice breaking between sobs. I want to fix this. I'll do anything. I shook my head slowly. There's nothing to fix, Cameron. You destroyed everything. I've moved on. And so should you. That's when she dropped the real bomb. But, my son, she said, choking on the words. He needs a father. He needs stability. I blinked. I was stunned by the audacity of it. Your son is not my responsibility, I said, my voice sharp. That's for you and his actual father to figure out. I paused. The words came out before I even fully thought them through. Oh wait, he ran off, didn't he? Sounds like a pattern. Cameron flinched like I'd slapped her. But she didn't argue. Instead, she just stared at me with tear-filled eyes and said, Why are you being so mean? I leaned forward, anger simmering in my chest. Me? Mean? I let out a bitter laugh. Come on, Cameron. I worked overtime to save for a ring because I thought we had a future together. I was planning to buy a house for us, start a family with you. And you threw it all away. You don't get to call me mean for refusing to clean up your mess. That broke her. She completely broke down, sobbing into her hands. Mason finally stepped in, his voice gentle but firm. Cameron, I think it's time to go. You need to respect his boundaries. Cameron turned to Sabrina, desperate for some sort of backup. Sabrina, you understand, don't you? You know I regret everything. Sabrina looked pained, but she didn't fold. Cameron, you're my sister, and I love you. But you made your choices. You can't expect him to just forget everything. Cameron stared at her like she'd just been stabbed in the back. Then without another word, she stormed out of the restaurant. I sat there for a moment, stunned and completely drained. Mason glanced at me, his tone apologetic. I'm sorry she showed up. You've been through enough. It's not your fault, I said quietly. You and Sabrina, you've been decent through all this. That's more than I can say for the rest of your family. After lunch, I headed home. I sat down with my family and told them everything that had happened. My dad let out a deep laugh and said, Jessica probably thought kicking you out would solve her problems. Look how well that worked out for them. My mom just hugged me tightly and said, Son, I'm proud of you for standing your ground. You deserve better. And she was right. In that moment, it really hit me Cameron's apologies didn't matter. I didn't need closure from her. I'd already given that to myself the day I walked away. After that confrontation with Cameron, I thought I'd feel something. Relief. Satisfaction. Maybe even a sense of finality. But honestly, it just felt empty. Closure wasn't what I expected. It wasn't neat. It didn't magically make everything better. Instead, it just reminded me of how much damage had been done. And how pointless it all was. A couple of days later, Sabrina sent me a text that caught me off guard. I really miss having you around. You were like the brother I never had. That hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, I just stared at the message, letting it sit with me. All the noise of the past months, the betrayal, the lies, the shouting matches faded into the background, and I was just left with that one simple truth. I had meant something to someone in that mess of a family. I replied, I appreciate you saying that. You've always been honest with me. You don't owe me an apology for Cameron's choices. If anything, you were the only one who acted with integrity. And I meant it. Hearing from Sabrina made me think back to everything I'd lost, not just Cameron, but the pieces of her world I'd started to care about. Mason had always treated me with respect. And Sabrina, she genuinely looked up to me. I didn't realize how much I missed that kind of connection, missed having people like them in my life, until that lunch. But the reality was, staying close to them meant keeping that door open. And I knew Cameron knew how she operated. If I let any part of her world back into mine, she'd find a way to worm her way in too. I couldn't afford that risk. Not anymore. About a week later, a mutual acquaintance reached out. Said they'd heard from Cameron apparently. She was still trying to contact some of my old friends, hoping they'd convince me to talk to her. She was struggling, they said. Being a single mom wasn't easy. She was juggling work, raising her son alone. The guy she cheated on me with? Ghosted her completely. I didn't feel vindicated hearing that. If anything, it just cemented how right I'd been to walk away. Her life or mess was her responsibility now. I wanted no part of it. And then there was Jessica. I'd expected her to keep throwing jabs from the sidelines, expected nasty texts or another ambush. But she went silent. Completely. Maybe the Red Lobster confrontation had knocked the wind out of her. Maybe she finally realized how much damage her lies had caused. Either way, I was grateful. Grateful to finally be free of her meddling, her poison. Still, there was one thing Cameron said during that final confrontation that lingered. She claimed she only cheated because Jessica convinced her I was unfaithful. At first, I'd laughed it off, brushed it away like every other excuse she'd thrown my way. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Jessica had been meddling in our relationship from the start, always whispering doubts into Cameron's ear, planting suspicion like weeds. She'd encouraged her to look elsewhere, to do better. But Cameron wasn't some helpless victim. She made her decisions. She chose to cheat. She chose to lie. And she chose to try and cover it all up once the truth came out. In the end, it didn't really matter who was more to blame. Jessica and Cameron were both toxic in their own ways, and I was better off without either of them. That night, I sat down with my family and laid it all out, the accusations, the cheating, the confrontation at the restaurant, all of it. My dad let out a short chuckle. Jessica was looking for any excuse to get rid of you, he said, shaking his head. That woman was always full of it. Rachel leaned back in her seat, arms crossed, smirking. And yet you're the one who came out ahead, she said. Cameron stuck raising a kid alone. Jessica's probably tearing her hair out trying to fix things. And meanwhile, you've got a clean slate. That's a win. My mom, always the steady one, reached over and hugged me tight. Justin, she said gently, I'm proud of you for standing your ground. You didn't let them manipulate you. That takes strength. It felt like closure. I'd finally moved on. I was focusing on myself again, on healing and rebuilding. The noise was gone. Peace, finally. But of course, Jessica wasn't going to let things end quietly. A few weeks after the whole scene with Cameron, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but against my better judgment, I answered. Justin, it's Jessica. Her voice was sharp, brittle with that same condescension she always carried. I nearly hung up then and there, but curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly want now? What do you want, Jessica? I asked, already annoyed. She didn't waste a second. I need to talk, she snapped, like she was the one doing me a favor by calling. It's about Cameron and the baby. I sighed, already regretting answering the call. There's nothing to talk about, Jessica. I've made my position clear. Goodbye. Wait. She barked, her voice sharp and commanding, just as I moved to hang up. I'm not asking you to get back with Cameron, she snapped, trying to regain control. I just think you should take responsibility for your part in this mess. That stopped me cold. My part. I blinked, stunned by the audacity. Oh, my part. I said, incredulous. And what part is that, Jessica? I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one who lied. So please, enlighten me. She let out a loud, exasperated sigh, like I was the one being unreasonable. Cameron is struggling, she said. She's a single mother now because of a misunderstanding that could have been avoided if you'd just explained things to me from the start. I almost laughed right there. I could feel my blood boiling, the fury rising in my chest. Are you seriously blaming me for Cameron's affair? I snapped. You were the one who introduced her to the guy. You were the one who convinced her I was cheating. Don't put this on me, Jessica. But she didn't even acknowledge my words. The baby needs a father, Justin, she said, as if that was the trump card. You were practically part of the family for years. It's time you stepped up and helped. If not for Cameron, then for the child. I was stunned into silence. My mouth opened, but for a moment, no words came out. When I finally found my voice, it came out cold and firm. Let me make this crystal clear, Jessica, I said slowly. That baby is not mine. I owe you, Cameron, and her kid absolutely nothing. And if you call me again, I'll block you just like I did before. There was a pause, and then her voice dropped, dripping with venom. Selfish boy, she hissed. You think you'll ever find someone better than Cameron? She made a mistake, but she's still the best you'll ever do. You're throwing away a good woman over something so trivial. That did it. I let out a deep, guttural laugh, genuine and bitter. Trivial, I repeated, still laughing. Cheating on me for almost a year, lying about a pregnancy, and trying to manipulate me into staying that's trivial to you? No wonder your family is such a mess. I didn't wait for a response. I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. I thought that would be the end of it. I'd blocked her number, made my boundaries clear, and walked away. But Jessica wasn't done. The next day, I got a call from Mason. I was just settling into my break when my phone buzzed. Seeing his name pop up, I expected something casual, maybe a follow-up about the laptop or some grilling tips. But the second I picked up, I knew something was off. "Justin, I need to apologize in advance," he said, his voice strained and tired, which was unusual for him. "What's going on?" I asked, sitting up straighter. "It's Jessica," he said. "She's been out of control. She's planning to show up at your workplace." "What?" I shot back, completely caught off guard. "Why the hell would she do that?" "She's saying you need to face her and take responsibility," he explained. "I've tried talking her out of it, but you know how she is once she gets something in her head." I groaned and rubbed my temples, already dreading the headache this was going to cause. "Thanks for the warning, Mason," I muttered. "I'll deal with it if she does show up." "Appreciate the heads up." Sure enough, that afternoon, just after lunch, Jessica stormed into the office like a hurricane in heels. I was in the back handling some files when I heard the commotion. Her voice, shrill and full of entitlement, cut through the office like a siren. "I need to speak to Justin," she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's a private family matter." My manager, Jenna, intercepted her at the front desk. She didn't raise her voice, but I could hear the edge in it. A few moments later, Jenna found me in the back. "Hey, there's a woman out front says her name is Jessica. Do you know her?" I let out a long sigh. "Unfortunately, yes," I said, standing up. "I'll handle it." I stepped into the front lobby, and there she was, arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes scanning the office like she owned the place. As soon as she saw me, she launched into her tirade. "Oh, so you have been ignoring me," she snapped. "I won't stand for it, Justin. You're going to listen to what I have to say." She glared at me like I was a naughty child refusing to clean my room. "Oh, no, I'm not," I said flatly. "You're on private property, and you're disrupting my workplace. Leave now, or I'll have security escort you out." That only seemed to make her angrier. "You can't just ignore your responsibilities, Justin," she practically screeched. "I'll tell everyone here what kind of man you really are." I didn't flinch. I crossed my arms and looked her dead in the eye. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them how your daughter cheated on me, lied about her pregnancy, and tried to manipulate me. See how much sympathy you get," I said, still staring at her with disgust. Jessica's face turned red, almost purple with fury, and for a second, I honestly thought she might explode right there in the lobby. Her lips curled as she spat out the venom she'd been saving. "You're a pathetic excuse for a man," she barked, her voice rising. "I hope you end up alone, because no decent woman will ever want you." Before I could respond, not that I needed to, security finally showed up. One of the guards calmly stepped between us and said, "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave now." Jessica opened her mouth to argue, but must have seen in their eyes that it wouldn't help. She shot me one last hateful glare as they escorted her out, heels clicking sharply against the tile, like some kind of soap opera villain being dragged off stage. I turned and saw a few of my coworkers lingering near their desks, curiosity written all over their faces. I gave a half shrug and forced a smirk. "Crazy ex's mom," I said. Long story. No one pressed further, thankfully. They probably figured that was enough information and knew better than to dig. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sabrina. "I'm so sorry about what happened today. Mom's behavior was inexcusable." She followed that up almost immediately. "Mason was furious with her for embarrassing the family like that. He's out of control. He's even talking about filing for divorce." I stared at the screen for a moment, just taking it in. It wasn't surprising. Honestly, Jessica had always been a hurricane, and everyone around her just had to weather the storm. I typed back, "Don't apologize, Sabrina. None of this is your fault. And I don't blame Mason one bit. She's pushed too far, and he deserves peace too." The whole situation left me completely drained mentally, emotionally, even physically. But despite the chaos and the scene she caused, there was one thing I was more certain of than ever. I made the right decision by cutting Cameron and her family out of my life. They were toxic, entitled, and utterly incapable of taking responsibility for their actions. And I wasn't about to let them drag me down with. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.